located. Welcome to Using AI to Generate Engaging Course Content. We're very excited to be here today to share some of the outcomes of our little research group at Penn State. I am Penny Ralston-Berg. I'm here along with my colleagues Lisa Byrnes and Kate Morgan, and we are instructional designers from the Penn State World Campus. Lisa and Kate will share detailed AI use cases with you today. And we ask that as you take in our lovely AI generated portraits here and throughout the session, you really keep these 4 ideas in mind. One, Chat GPT doesn't really flow as a name. And so throughout the session, we'll tend to call this Chatty G just because it's easier. 2, nothing you get from AI is 100%, as you can see from our portraits. 3, be thoughtful and purposeful with your prompts. It will really do you some good. And then 4, it's a process of vetting and fine-tuning that leads to quality, and that will be represented in the cases today. And so now I'll hand it off to Lisa for the first use case.
Thank you, Penny. I appreciate the introduction. I'm keeping it on this first slide intentionally because when I first asked ChatGPT to create my image of myself, I forgot to say that I was female. So that was an important point to make. So that is why my very first one came out with the male in the upper left-hand corner, but it got better as it went on. So what we're going to talk about, or the part I'm going to talk about, is how we used Custom GPT to create a scenario for a union course. So I'm working with a faculty member to create a course about how to organize a union and the process of which to do that with. And so we're looking at both the union side and the management side. And the course author had all of the content, but we were trying to think of what we could do with the assignments to make them more authentic and more purposeful, and something that the students would actually experience when they're out there, they're working. So what we came up with is that we wanted to do a starter story, is what we call it. Just something that came up with a fictitious company, had some characters in it, and something where we could create a new assignment each week, but based on the same characters and the same company. And to do this from scratch, it would have been possible, but it also would have taken us a very long time to do this. So what we did is then, because I was working on this group at Penn State, and we were kind of investigating ChatGPT, I had proposed this to the group I was working with. And so we kind of worked through this process. And so the first step that we wanted to do is come up with the fictional company and then the characters that represented both the union and the management. And ChatGPT did a pretty good job right off the bat. So the company that it came up with was called Tektronic, and it wanted it to be a cutting edge technology company with a dedicated workforce. And the issue of why the employees wanted to create a union was because the company was thinking about automating their processes. And so this sparked fears among the employees about job losses and layoffs. So when I took this back to the faculty member, she wanted a more specific company. So we made it a software company. And then we wanted a diverse workforce. And we wanted a little more issues so that we could have a little bit more flexibility of what they were going to be looking at for each week. Because as I said, she had the content already created. There were certain topics that were going to be covered each week. And those are the topics that we wanted the assignment to be focused on. So the issues that we changed it to was there was going to be a change in the compensation structure. They were going to be adopting new technology, and they also were going to be automating the process. And these were all things that were going to be that were sparking the fears in the employees in this fictitious company of Tektronic. So we wanted to create also characters. So the Chat GPT suggested some very common names, and the profiles for each of those people was very, very vague. They were very short. So we had went back to it and asked it to give us more diverse names and nationalities, and we wanted more in-depth information about each person. We wanted to know how long they've worked with the company, what their background was, what their area of expertise was, what their age was, what their major achievements were. Did they have any experience with organizing a union in the past or being a part of a union? So we asked it to do this, and it gave us a much more robust character list and character backgrounds, which was absolutely excellent. So what we did that after we created the starter file, which included the company, fictitious company, and some background information about that company, and we had the characters and that really robust background and information and profile about those characters, we started to design the custom GPT. And to design the custom GPT, there were basically like 4 components that we used. So we did use ChatGPT 4 for this. So we are using the paid version. We used what we called the starter file, that starter file with the information about the company and the characters. In the custom GPT area, they call it knowledge, and we'll talk a little bit about that when I show this. Then we also had to include instructions and steps. So certain steps that we wanted it to complete. We wanted it to give us a scenario. We wanted it to give us some assignment options. We wanted it to give us a rubric. We wanted it to give us objectives. So we had to put those instructions in step. And then to get the whole custom GPT started, there was a short conversation starter, which you can also think of as a prompt. And by putting these components together, we came up with what it called the scenario crafter. So I'm going to take you into the custom GPT and show you what this looks like. So here is my scenario crafter, and I'm going to go into the back end of it first of all, just so that I can give you an idea of what this looks like. So when we started the custom GPT, this is where you go to create a custom GPT. And we started in the create tab. And so we gave it a little bit of a description of what we wanted to do. And it gave us this icon that you see here. And then it also then gave us the title of the scenario crafter. Then we went to the configure tab and we gave it a short description, which appears here. And what you see on the right is actually an example of what you will actually see with the GPT. And then we gave it some instructions. You know, we wanted to adjust the tone. We wanted to be professional. We wanted to have a sense of expertise. We wanted it to have scenarios that based on labor unions. And we also wanted to hear from the management, and we wanted to hear from the unions. And then these were the steps that we had it create. So there were 5 steps in the total custom GPT that we used. Then we used the knowledge base, and the knowledge base is what we call the starter story that had with the company and the characters. And anytime we run this GPT, this custom GPT, it uses the starter story as a resource. So it's pulling from that starter story all the time. So I'm going to go back into just doing a regular GPT to kind of walk through how this works. So I'm going to start with a new chat. So each week, what we want to do in the course is each week we come into this scenario crafter and we give it the main topic of what the students are learning that week. So for example, in this particular week, But before I do that, I'm going to click on the starter. So it says, I would like to enter a topic. That's the prompt. So it's going to say, sure, provide a topic for me. So I'm going to put in the topic. So collective bargaining of first contract, early and middle stages. So we want to know the early and middle stages, what happens during that time. And we want it to produce the scenario for us. But we also want it to produce the scenario, including the characters that we have in that knowledge base. And it's going to reference that. So it's going to start to work on that. So here's the collective bargaining of first contract at Tectonic Innovations. It started out as Tectonic, and then we have changed it to Tektronic, but I didn't change it on the starter file. So it sets up the early stages of collective bargaining, the initial meetings. It gives us all the information and scenario to kind of tee this up. It's given us the story. We post this out to the students so that they could read through it. And each week, this story is going to continue to build with every phase of going through organizing a union and what needs to happen. So you can see it gives the union initial meetings, the management response, some negotiation tactics, and then it asks me, do you want to develop some assignment ideas? Well, sure I do. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes to that. And now what it's going to do is going to create a series of variety of assignments. And when it lists these assignments, we'll see how it's feeling on a Friday, because when I did this yesterday, it felt a little bit differently than it does now. So here it's going to start off. So it's going to give us some assignments. So we have role-playing assignments, and it gives us like a brief description and the objective for each assignment. So there's a variety of assignments, and we could choose one of these, we could choose all of these, but anytime we produce anything or anytime I get some information from ChatEG, I take this information, I go back to the faculty member, and we talk things through. There is nothing that ChatEG created that we used exactly as it was in ChatEG. And if you were in the session this morning or earlier with Megan, she talked about that, it's not in place of us, but it is in addition to us. It's like another person helping us work on the course. So it used to be that it was just me and the instructor. We had a partnership. Now we have this trio. I have ChatGPT that is joining us. So it gives us a variety of choices of assignment ideas that we can use. And depending on how the instructor wants the students to apply the main concepts, she'll pick one or two of these, and then she'll adjust what it asks for and what the assignment is seeking the students to do and how they're applying what they're learning. And at least it gave us a springboard to go from. We didn't have to do this from scratch. We now had some ideas to work from, which was a huge time saver for us. And she loved this idea, that it gave us some ideas and that she could see it written down and the objectives for each. It really helped her to kind of tighten this up a little bit more. So the next thing it asks us is, would you like some objectives? Well, sure, I'll take some objectives. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And so what it will do is create objectives for each assignment again. And we'll see how it does it on this one. Sometimes it creates 2 objectives for each assignment. Sometimes it only creates 1, but it will give the what the exercise is or what the assignment is, and it will give the objective for that assignment. And some of these, of course, none of these we can use exactly as they are here. So we can't cut and paste from ChatEG, but we can adjust this and make them more clear and make them shorter. I can even ask ChatGPT to do that for me. I want them to be more clear and concise. And it can do that for me. So today's Friday, and I think ChatEG is a little tired because it's only giving me 1 objective for each. But when I was just practicing and playing around for it yesterday for this presentation, you'll see that if it even wants to show me what it did yesterday, you'll see that it gave me 2 objectives for each one. So it was feeling a little bit better on Thursday than it is today. It's getting tired. It's Friday. Remember, you never want a car that was built on a Friday or a Monday. So it asks then, do I want it to do anything else? So this is great. We've got an assignment. Well, let's start from the beginning. We have the scenario. We have some choices of assignments that we have here. And now we have some objectives. So you know what? One more thing I would like for it to do that takes a lot of time is I would like for it to create a 100-point grid-like rubric with five criteria and grading levels. And I'm not even being specific right now about what criteria I want it to have. I'm just asking it for 5 criteria. So it's going to go ahead and produce this. Now, I know earlier Megan said that she didn't even have to put in grid-like rubric. If I don't put in, it seems to bring it back to me as just written in paragraphs. So I always specifically ask for a grid-like rubric. And then it gives the criteria and the 3 levels of grading that I asked for, and with a 100-point rubric. And again, we don't take any of these rubrics and just copy and paste them into the course. We go through, we fix them up, we change sometimes the criteria, or we may ask for a different criteria and ask it to redo it. But it gives us, again, this great foundation to start with and somewhere to go instead of going from scratch. I mean, just in the starter story, to create all those characters that we created and the in-depth information about those characters would have taken us a long time. And let me just give you an example of what the starter story looks like. So the starter story that we use for the knowledge in the custom GPT is this is the starter story that was used. And then this was the information that it gave us for each person, you know, their name, what their job title does, their educational background. Chat GPT-4 gave us all of this information for all these characters. And then I also happened to use Chat GPT when I introduced the characters to the students in the course. I used AI to create the images for each of these people. And so it produced all the images and it really gave it a personal feel. But we're hoping it, and what the faculty loved about this is that she felt like all of these assignments were being made specifically for just this course, exactly laid out the way she wanted the course to be. And so each week we could control what the students were going to learn and what the topic was, and it was being based directly on what they were learning that week. So it turned out that she really, really loves it. So I'm going to come back into my presentation here. So I didn't want to start on that slide. Hold on, because that's the very beginning. So going back to the presentation. So we had a lot of insights between the faculty and I, and this course has not run yet. So it's going to run for the first time in the fall. But what she really liked about it, and what I liked about using the custom GPT, was that we were creating authentic assignments related directly to what the students were learning that week. Whatever the main topic was for what the union should be doing in that time, that's what we were learning about. And that's what students were applying what they were learning. So they were getting actual authentic assignments that will prepare them for the workplace. We know that after this course runs in the fall, there's going to definitely be potential for enhancements. And I'm excited to take a look at those and what we come up with. But I'm also excited to hear what the student feedback is going to be on this assignment that uses the same characters throughout every assignment in the entire semester. So what was the impact of using a custom GPT and Chat GPT-4? Well, as I've mentioned several times, it gave us a foundation to start from. And sometimes that's the hardest part, is that, you know, you give ideas to the faculty, but they're not quite sure how they work. But with the Chat GPT, it gave us the ideas of what the assignments could be and a brief description of each, including an objective for each assignment. We liked, and she liked, the way the story evolved throughout the semester. We're using the same characters, the same company, and we're just changing what's happening each week and how the union organizing is going, and you know what they need to do next. Is there going to be voting? Is there going to be discussions that take place back and forth? And what negotiations are going to take place? And all that this is going to be done through the assignment that's going to be created. And I can't say enough about the improved efficiency of what it did for me as the instructional designer. It suggested the assignments. It gave us rubrics for all the assignments that we can use, and creating rubrics in themselves can take a long time to do. But again, this is not taking the place of us. This is in addition. Now we have three things or three people that are working on the course, not just the course author and the ID. We have ChatGPT as part of our team now. And it has been very enjoyable. It's been very exciting. We know that we have to read everything and make sure that it's read for accuracy, and spelling, and make sure that it's in the context that we want to use it. But having that kind of starter information in there and that foundation to build off has been extreme time saver for us. And I hope that you all can get an opportunity to use it and see how it works for you.
Lisa, there's a question in the chat. Could you answer real briefly just how you sold this idea to the faculty member?
Actually, it was very simple because we were talking about creating a starter story, and I had said to her, been talking to her about this AI group that I was working with at Penn State, and I said, maybe we could give it to ChatGPT and see what it comes up with. She's like, yes, let's try it. Let's see what happens. So she bought into it right away. But all it took was the first time I kind of typed into, I said, well, give me a topic that you think you'd want to do. And I put the topic in and I hit for it to go ahead and create it. And that whole information of the scenario came up and the topic and all the assignments related to it. She absolutely fell in love from that point. It was love at first sight with Chat GPT between her and Chat GPT, Chatty G. So thank you for the question.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right, so I guess I'm going to step in now. I'm going to say that working on this project, because we did work on it as a team, was so much fun. Lisa led the ideas. We all came together and kind of shared like how we thought it should work. And it has been really cool to see it in action. I'm going to jump in quickly to talk about AI imagery, not in a how to do everything, but it just is in a way to have conversations, to get the ideas out of your head and into an image, and to like help your workflow a little bit. So really quickly, AI imagery is done a little differently than large language models, which is like Chatty G and things like that. And one of the main differences, I mean, there's lots of very complicated scientific names, GAN, SCAN, all kinds of things. But basically, AI imagery starts with like a fuzzy screen. Like think about your TV when it's got snow all over it, or one way I can think about it is if you all remember a light bright, you put the black piece of paper in and then you poke holes in it to make colors come through. That's basically how AI works. So it trains like a combination between text and images together. All right. And it uses a diffusion model. So it pulls away content instead of adding content. And that's why it can't spell. That's really why it can't spell, because it's not trained on letters. It's trained on images. It's trained on impressions and things like that. So that's just a quick background on it. That's not what we're really here to talk about. But that's been a big question. Like, why is AI imagery can't spell? I ask it to create something. It puts words on it. I can't get rid of the words, and they're all spelled wrong. It's going to get better. I guarantee it. But that's pretty much the reason. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the ways that I've used it with my faculty. So, okay, no offense intended here. First thing I did for this was create an image of a visual learner. And yes, there's no credible evidence to the learning style of visual learning, but there is proof that visuals aid in information retention, helping explore complex concepts, and increasing user engagement. So let's face it, a picture is worth like 1,000 things. It's worth mental organization. It's worth enhancing topics or images. Besides, how many times have you come to an impasse, especially in learning, when you're like, I just can't picture it? Well, guess what? There's a bunch of apps for that now. Okay. And you've heard of probably thousands of them, and they just keep coming. There's like Midjourney and Dolly and Firefly, Adobe, this PowerPoint. If you've ever used the design tab, it has an AI built into it to help your designs look better. So anyway, let's go to a problem I had. And it was a minor problem, but it was a problem that for me, I like to see things. I was doing an interactive for my course, and it was about an HR manager at a high-end grocery store having to make decisions. Okay, so I went to my Adobe stock photos and I was like, hey, do you have a diverse HR manager in a grocery store? And they did not. They did not have what I needed, and I was very sad about that. So, and the thing was, is this isn't a deal-breaking image. It was just something that I thought would add to the page. It would give it a little more engagement, personality, something like that. So I was like, all right, AI, let's do this. So I typed into AI, and immediately I had a ton of just of images. So I brought this to my next faculty meeting, and I was like, hey, here's some images that we could add to that interactive we were talking about. Do you like any of these? And like, well, where did you get all of these? And I was like, oh, artificial intelligence can make things just from your words. So they loved it. So that, again, like you were talking about, how do you break this, break the ice with faculty? You give them what they want. So anyway, I ended up using one of them they agreed on, and it was used in the banner for the interactive. And see, it's just a small picture. We didn't need to like go spend hours looking for the image that we needed. So we gave them a little personality, a name, a little bit of a resume, just as an added element to the page. It really had no other purpose than that. So sometimes it is a simple addition. It's just the details, if you will. And it was a real time saver. Now, this situation was a lot more critical. We had a big assignment due, and the original idea was an actual reenactment of a sexual harassment scenario that happened in one of the faculty members' careers. And we were trying to set it up, and the video production fell through at the last minute. We didn't have time to get all the actors in, and we needed some nuances. We needed it to be like a little confusing, a little like could go either way sort of situation. So I knew I was going to be engaging a graphic designer in this one. So I went to my Adobe stock photos again, and I was like, can I have like a boss and an employee in a conference room? And it gave me the picture on the left, as you see. And then I was like, but I need it to be a female boss. So you can't really read it, but the little lines in the little gray lines that are over the picture, I circled the head of the guy and I said, make this a female. And it gave me this. And then I was like, and also we need a confused looking employee. So I circled the face and I said, change his face. All right. And so suddenly I had a conversation to have with my graphic designer. All right, here's a situation that I need, except I needed to be a 50-year-old French woman and a younger employee. And this is what she was able to come back with. So here we are in this, and she added a witness for later, and the whole thing kind of came together, but it didn't take me a long time of back and forth and her wasting her time. I was able to get the ideas out of my head and hand them to her. Now, there's been some other opportunities with AI to add some other elements to the course. Again, nothing that is, as high value as maybe the sexual harassment one, but things that really enhance the course and make it feel modern. Kind of like Lisa was saying, we had one of the assignments was a case study on a company called Global Robot. And so I was like, oh, this would look great if it came out on letterhead. So give me an icon for that. And it did. And I'll let you know right now, the Global Robot was completely spelled wrong when it gave it to me, but I could fix that because I do know how to use some, Photoshop and things like that. But the image itself is exactly what I wanted and needed. It was simple. It matches the design pretty well. And then there's a whole lot of points if you've designed a course or been in a course where they're like, hey, take this information you just read and let's think about it in another way. So I was like, can you give me a thought prompt? And it came up with several of them, which this one I liked a lot. I put it into the course. And actually, before I even mentioned it to the faculty member, they're like, oh, I really like that thought prompt. And so, sometimes it does a really good job at just giving you some elements that you need at the last minute. This corporate umbrella one was something that I was just using as a page enhancement. We had like a pullout, and I was like, can I have a very simplistic modern look? That's how the whole course is designed, with thin lines, kind of like, the current style, if you will. And this is what came back with, and I really liked it. So I kept it. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't have kept it. So all of this conversation with this course had caught the attention of another faculty member who was teaching economics for business. And they reached out to me and said, can we have a conversation? I'm having some issues trying to get some complex concepts into a visual format. So I was like, sure. So the first thing I did was before the meeting, I went to ChatGPT and I was like, could you compare some apples and oranges for me? And it just gave me this image, which I thought was professionally done and nice. So we started the meeting, we talked about some of the concepts they needed, but I'm going to tell you, ChatGPT was hard. You know, when you're asking it to demonstrate some of these things, it doesn't work as you would hope. However, the conversation was there. And from the conversation, were able to work through things. So exhibit A, oh, give us a nice image to represent investments in securities. And the SME was like, this says nothing and it's wrong. Exhibit B, how about I asked ChatGPT in a little backwards motion, explain to me the fundamental accounting model as if I were a new student. So it gave me 2 paragraphs on this model. And then I said, now give me an image to complement that. Well, it gave us that terrible image and that was unusable as well. And everything's spelled wrong. Like, I don't even know what it's saying, but it gives me a headache. And so next up, we had I started asking questions like, what can you do? Like, I appreciate the effort, but what actually can you do? And so it's like, oh, I can create some infographics. You can, all right. So it tells me what it needs from me. You know, I need some data points or concepts, things like that. Like, great, look how easy this is going to be. And all of this is in a live meeting with a faculty member. So all they're seeing is failure at this point, right? So here's our first infographic. Again, no, it's not going to work. So we kept trying. And suddenly we started getting somewhere. I was like, wait a minute, we can do a graph. So we gave it some content, very simple content, and the graph showed up on the left that you see here. And it was correct and it was accurate. And then you can go in and say, wait, I want these colors to be blue and orange and pink, whatever. And it will change those colors for you. So like, okay, so the faculty member's like, oh, I can do graphs like that. That's interesting. So then I'm like, oh, look, create a graphic of the DuPont model. By the way, I don't know what any of these things are. So as I'm putting these into ChatGPT, I have no idea what's coming out and if it's even accurate. And so they hated the picture of the graphic of the DuPont model. So then we turned it around and said, please give us a graphic of the DuPont model that a high school student could understand. And yes, it's a cartoon. Don't get me wrong. But they got it. They're like, hold on a minute. I mean, this is too cartoonish for the course that we're teaching, but the way they broke it into squares, the way they have it set up, this makes sense. And suddenly we have a way forward, especially if we're working with a graphic designer or if something needs to be put together, they are able to compartmentalize the content in their own heads. So that was a win. So in the end, we ended up playing this big game of Pictionary, but coming out with the idea that sometimes storytelling isn't just about an image. It could be a graph. It could be a way to tell the story. And so what are some additional benefits to using AI imagery? For every image it creates, it gives you some text that can be used for alt text, which is obviously important for accessibility. Also, it gives really good descriptions in there. So you can kind of have an idea of how to put a long description into a course. As everyone has been emphasizing all day, editing is very important. Don't trust GPT. And also, you're probably not going to use all of it anyway, but it gives you the content to start with and to have those conversations with. And so the bottom line is AI imagery is transforming education, creative industries, and digital management. And it's transforming it. It's not replacing it. It's not going to be, doing all the work for us, but it really expands your brain and your mind and your conversations. And the things to come include more realistic generated images. There's like nuanced things coming out, and they're going to be interpreting emotional cues. I mean, at the current rate, the updates are happening every couple months, major updates, not just like your iPhone update that happen every month, but like major updates that change how the AI is working. So that's something to look forward to. I was going to show you an example to play with, but we don't really have time for that. So we can talk about the future applications of AI. And I don't know, Penny, do you want to jump in on this one?
Yes, if I can find my unmute, right. So yeah, so thanks everyone. There was a lot of detail in the examples, and so I appreciate going through everything. I've been answering some questions in the chat. Yeah, for the future of AI, we're all in a research group, as Kate and Lisa mentioned, and we just need to keep exploring, right? There's so much, it's updating all the time. So we just need to keep exploring further and building those custom GPTs and seeing what we can do and how we can get it to do what we actually want it to do and how to help us within our jobs. And then, you know, just trying to keep up to date, right? It takes work, right? So within our team, every week we spend 2 hours as a group just talking about, you know, what's different this week since last time we logged in, or bringing a problem to solve and then working through it with the 5 of us. So it does take dedication if you want to stay ahead of it, right? Or not, actually not ahead, but try to keep up with it, I should say. Yeah.
It's a little overwhelming.
So yeah, it can be overwhelming for sure. And so yeah, we're open to questions. You can add them to the chat. You can link to our Pinterest board. We have, that's the QR code there. You could go to our Pinterest board or to that website. As we learn things and find interesting articles, we add them together from our research group. And just for fun, there's a logo that ChatGPT made for itself that you can see that it can't spell still. Are there any questions?
I can show you a quick image we were messing around with to kind of show you how ChatGPT 4 allows you to edit some images, which is an option, but I can't, there we are. So if you want to stop sharing, Lisa, I can share the screen. Okay, so honestly, we just were playing around here, and it says here, you know, I asked it to create an image of AI walking into a bar. And it says, hey, give me some more information. Like, what kind of bar is it? What does AI look like? Are there any other characters? So I said, it's a country western bar. AI is trying to fit in. There's live music playing, and the bar has a lot of beer taps. So this is what it came back with. You know, there's a little band back there. At first, I didn't see that. So the cool thing about ChatGPT now, at least this version, is you have a little edit button up here now. So we could put like, let's see, let's make this a female. Let's tell it to add a female bartender.
So you're using the editing tool now on the specific image,
On
right,
this
Kate?
specific image, once you click on the image, it'll open up in its own window and give you some editing tools. And then if you don't open the window, it'll recreate an image or try to. But if you open this window, you can work on the very specific image that you have.
And this is one of those improvements that just showed up one day, that as we were working in our group, Linas noticed that.
And it just got rid of it.
Mhm.
Apparently there are no female bartenders in a country western bar. Let's try this again. If anyone has any suggestions of what I should add, do we want him to have
Yeah,
a nose or sunglasses or any
you can make
suggestions?
suggestions in the chat. What would you like to change about this picture? Mustache, yep, for the win.
Okay,
And hair.
let me cover the whole face there into the neck. Ooh, can you add a mustache and some hair to the AI cowboy? Poor AI, it's just not going to fit in yet, right? It is a lot of trial and error, but it's also really funny. It's very fun to play with.
Yeah.
And it's a good conversation.
Anthony's asking if there were any annoying items or fragments that would occur when you're receiving images. For example, like wispy text that doesn't mean anything, or if it does something incorrect, then can you solve it with a new prompt?
Yes, it has. If I keep messing with it, one of two things happens. It gets better or it gets worse. But you can go back, you can like go back to the original image. You can close it out and go back to the original image and mess with it. So it gave it this very plush handlebar mustache that looks very natural in the situation, but no hair. Here's the updated. Take a look and let me know if this is what you envisioned or if there's anything else we'd like to modify. So you kind of get the idea that there's a lot you can do here. And like, for instance, when we first came in here, we put our backgrounds on. I shouldn't have put the state on. It's a great icebreaker. Everyone, where do you think we're from? This is the world we live in now, where we're on teams that are incredibly, spread apart and diverse, but we can still have a great conversation to get everyone thinking and talking. Wow, there's 17 messages. Heather said I asked it to make a bio for herself and it did 50%.
Yeah. And someone asked just how to get started. Like if you haven't used it, what would you recommend is just like a good place to start?
In terms of images or in terms of everything?
Oh, they didn't say.
I think I'm responding to that in the chat, but one of the things I said was just to go to ChatGPT and ask it anything. And it doesn't even have to be job related, but is there a certain problem within your job that you want to solve? For our case, we wanted to create a scenario and we didn't want to have to do it from scratch. And so we asked it to create a union-based scenario. You know, I've also used it to create training plans. So, I'm doing rim to rim in the Grand Canyon in October. And so I asked it to create a training plan that included hikes within the Tucson area that increased in distance each week. And it gave me a training guide back. So, ask it anything. Some people will just, ask it questions to find out things about the world. I once heard that ChatGPT is kind of like what we thought Ask Jeeves was going to be years ago. I like that idea, Heather, asking it to brainstorm presentation titles. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, they're asking if there's a lot of back and forth in the scenario.
Once the scenario was created, I handed that over to the faculty member and she used tracking changes within Word and made her changes and everything. And then I read over and gave some suggestions, and then we pretty much were done with it from that point then. So there wasn't as much as back forth as we would have had we done it from scratch. I'm not sure what she's looking for as far as characters, just even coming up with what kind of a company it would be. Sometimes you sit and you think about it and you ponder too hard on these types of questions. And, ChatGPT is great for brainstorming, giving you answers to questions that you have. But there was very little back and forth. It's that ChatGPT gave us such great foundations to go from. We couldn't use anything just the way it produced it for us, but it gave us such great foundation and great ideas that it gave us a starting point that was much further along than what we would have been had we done it from scratch.
I added another helper in there too, because we have a lot of designers here. I created a custom GPT called the diplomatic designer that helps you rephrase your suggestions in more diplomatic terms, which was created in just a few minutes. So we've put a lot of time into this, but I don't want to give people the impression that you have to be an expert to actually make something productive out of this. This is a result of a lot of experimenting and problem solving together and just getting in and trying it. You can create custom GPTs in just a matter of minutes. So it's just really taking time to get in there and try it out.
And
Yeah, one of the things to think about is maybe a common set of questions you would be asking ChatGPT. Like a lot of times I was working on a course and I needed to expand upon some content that was based on learning objectives. And so instead of constantly retyping, please expand upon this learning objective and and going this, I put that information in the chat GPT as the knowledge, if you will. And then all I had to say was like, what's your newest learning objective? And paste it in there or type it in there. And it already knew what it was supposed to do with that content. So it does save a lot of that repetitive type of, that's a great place to start with it anyway, is starting with the repetitive stuff that you're always doing. It's also extremely good at HTML code. If you're working on tables, if you're working on some issues you're having there, it's very good at rewriting code.
Oh yeah, and someone added English is not their native language, so it's very helpful.
Thank you very much. This has been fantastic.
Certainly, if anybody has any questions, you can get in touch with us. We can put our email addresses in the chat so that you have those. But we do appreciate you all coming, and we wish you luck in your journey with ChatGPT. And certainly we're open to any questions that you have or ideas. We're always open to ideas to explore further.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
And thank you. This is fantastic. Don't forget to complete the survey, everyone.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Stop the recording now.